Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast and another edition of our countdown, our summer countdown 25 for 25, in which we are counting down the top 25 Knicks of the last 25 seasons, as has been the case for every one of these episodes. I am joined by my buddy, Andrew Claudio. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I am great, John. For those that don't live in the Big Apple, a very weird cold front, although I think it had something to do with Hurricane Erin, I believe is her name. But
did not know Hurricane Erin was a thing.
Yeah, shout out to the Gulf Coast and anybody hit by it in Florida. I'll be honest, I don't know how much of an impact this hurricane had, but I do know that it rained as hard as it did yesterday and was as windy as it was today. And it's why I'm in long sleeves for like the first time in months because of said conditions. But hopefully we're all getting past that tomorrow. And we're going to talk about a player that will remind us of some dark days, but hopefully we can celebrate his career regardless.
Yeah, I was about to say I have a lawn now, and the inclement weather has resulted in many sticks and twigs and branches and things on my lawn.
Homeowner probs. Yeah.
Yes. And my analogy was an imperfect one. There were many sticks and twigs and trees, actually, many trees on the Knicks lawn for several of the years during which the player that we're going to talk about played for the franchise. And that player, of course, is Stephon Marbury.
You're underselling it. This was not twigs and like leaves suddenly blowing up on the Knicks lawn in the mid 2000s. Like trees fell over and foundations were unearthed as well. There really was no foundation, which I think is part of the Stephon Marbury conversation.
It's absolutely part of the Stephon Marbury conversation because he is, he would have been an interesting player to add to an existing foundation, just to contrast him with I don't know if this you said you were going to have some trivia for me. I'm not sure if this was going to come up, but if you group, as I have for all of these players, the Knicks over the last 25 seasons, and you group them by total win shares, Jalen Brunson is currently number 5 at 28.2 win shares. This is per basketballreference.com. Stephon Marbury is 6th with 28.1 win shares. So they are quite literally as close as two players could be without being the same. You know, Brunson came to a team that had a foundation, and obviously he has sprungboard that into an MVP, campaign year after year since he's been here. Marbury was expected to be the foundation. What would things have been different if he had come to a team with a Julius Randle type player, or an RJ Barrett type player, and even an Emmanuel Quickley type player? We'll never know, but we're going to get into all that today. First things first, though, we have a little bit of a resume to go through as we are doing it all these episodes. Thank you again, Mr. Claudio, for taking care of this. So Stephon Marbury, number 17 on our rankings. He was known in the New York City area well before. Apologies for my dog.
Madison must really want to let us know how much she appreciates.
Well, listen,
Stephon
Marbury elicited strong feelings in both directions. So he was Mr. Basketball for New York State his senior year at Lincoln High School in Brooklyn. He was a not a household name as far back as his freshman year at Lincoln, but like people started to know who he was when he first started at Lincoln High School. And then kind of his legend grew from there, and it was absolutely a legend by the time he got to Georgia Tech, where he attended school briefly. And then it was drafted 4th overall in 1996 by the Milwaukee Bucks. And then in a draft night trade, he was traded to the Timberwolves for Ray Allen and a future first-round pick.
Do you know who was taken with that future first-round pick? It's like not a name you should know. It's just like, it's very obscure, actually. It's like a backup center.
Samuel Dalembert. I have no idea.
That that tier, Rasha Nesterovic is Nesterovic. Nesterovic is the name that they took.
So, yeah, I mean, I thought you were going a different direction with the draft. And like, before we keep going, I think, again, there are so many things that shape the Stephon Marbury conversation, whether they be fair or unfair, but it is impossible to escape the draft class that he was a part of. So if we could just very briefly go down the list.
Don't go down it yet. That's part of the trivia. So get off the screen that you're on right now.
I know that draft by heart.
On it? So it's not so much you know that draft by heart. So the 1996 NBA draft is legendary for having a lot of great players in it. John, Stephon Marbury had 16,297 career points. Can you name the other 6 NBA players from the 1997 NBA draft that finished with 15,000 career points or more?
The other 6 who finished at least 15,000. Okay.
Yes.
So, first overall pick, former MVP Allen Iverson.
That's one.
13th overall pick, former MVP Kobe Bryant.
First on the list, 33,000 points.
The gentleman for whom Stephon Marbury was traded for on draft night, not an MVP player, but another Hall of Famer, Ray Allen.
Ray Allen, second on the list, 24-5. You now name the top 3 on the list.
I'm going to name the only, pretty sure he got above that mark, the only 2-time MVP from this draft class. This is where I'm going to fuck it up. 14th overall pick or 15th?
15th overall pick. 17,387 points for Steve Nash.
So I have 2 more to go?
2 more.
Okay.
It's the 2 after Marbury. Marbury's 5th on this list. There's 2 other players that had 15,000 career points. At least 15,000.
By the skin of their teeth, as it were, right?
Both are not above 16,000.
Both are not above 16. Okay. So it wasn't second overall pick Marcus Camby. I don't think it was ever
less than 10,000.
Yeah, I don't think he ever averaged over like 12, 13 points a game. I am going to say that it was the number 3 overall pick, Sharif Abdur-Rahim.
You are correct, sir. 15,028. So by 28 points, he clears the list.
Vast majority of those, of course, gotten with the then Vancouver Grizzlies, and then he was traded to Atlanta was that the Pau Gasol trade? I think that was the Pau Gasol trade, although we could double check that. The trade that gave them the pick that was used to take Pau Gasol, who of course was later traded to the Lakers. Double check that. I may be off on that one.
Traded by the Vancouver Grizzlies with Jamal Tinsley to the, you are correct, Atlanta Hawks for Pau Gasol, Brevin Knight, and Lorenzen Wright.
Okay. So Marbury was the 4 pick. Ray Allen was the 5 pick. The number 6 pick. Did you just name the number 6 pick? No. The number 6 pick in this draft was did not turn out to be a great player.
You sure?
I don't think, unless I'm mistaking it for somebody else.
Lorenzen Wright is the player I think you were thinking of, and he went 7th. The number 6.
So then I'm mixing up 6 and 7.
The number 6 pick is the answer to this question. Kentucky.
Was it? Wait. Hold on. Oh. Antoine Walker?
Antoine Walker, 15,647 career points. Those are the 7 players that scored at least 15,000 career points from this draft.
So now I'm going to go back and look at my list. So Iverson, Hall of Famer, Ray Allen, Hall of Famer, Kobe Bryant, Hall of Famer, Steve Nash, Hall of Famer. Other players who were on their way at one point or another to a Hall of Fame career. Jermaine O'Neal got pretty close to that 15,000, 13,309. I think he got as high as 4th in MVP voting one year. Peja Stojakovic, obviously, well, what were you?
He finished 3rd in MVP voting.
3rd in MVP voting, even better. Peja Stojakovic, I'm fairly certain, finished 4th in MVP voting one year for the Kings when he was arguably their most important player on the team that went to the conference finals and lost famously to the Los Angeles Lakers. And then you have guys like Kerry Kittles, went 8th overall, the aforementioned Antoine Walker, a top 2 player on a conference finalist. like it's a star-studded. Derek Fisher, obviously, not a Hall of Fame caliber player, but a guy who was, I think he's like top 5 in playoff games played and like all sorts of things. Like, it is up there with it's certainly the top 5 draft classes of the last 40 years without even thinking about it too much. Probably the top 3 of the last 40 years. And Marbury on the night I remember with the night of this draft, and he was viewed as a guy who was certainly as talented as anyone else who was taken. And it was all about, like, what would it be with KG? Like, could those guys make it work together? Like in Minnesota, was it, and it's funny because there's another article I remember coming out at the time that like KG laid the groundwork for Marbury as the guy coming straight out of high school that emboldened guys like Marbury to, and Iverson for that matter, and Kobe, to either not attend college at all or not attend college for all that long. So there was so much. I'm going through this a lot, and we haven't even gotten to the Knicks stuff yet because I think it's important to go through this stuff because there was so much buildup for Marbury before he ever played an NBA game. And then over the course of his career, there was so much other stuff swirling around because of the draft class he came out of that had nothing to do with him or his game or the situations that he was put in, maybe to his detriment. And I guess that's as good a springboard as any to talking about him as a Knick, which he got traded there, as you see on the screen, in 2004 with Penny Hardaway for 5 different players and 2 picks. Is there a trivia question here, Andrew?
Can you name how many of the players can you name? And do you have any idea who the 2 players that were taken with the 2 picks that the Knicks sent out ended up being?
Well, one of the picks was the most, because I just wrote about this, was the most distant first round pick that they could trade, which ended up being their 2010 pick, which was used to. So this is where it gets complicated because it was a swap later. I'm going to go with Jamal Murray.
It was no. Jamal Murray was.
Oh no, that's like 6 years later. Hold on,
is the swap that was in the Melo trade where the Nuggets went from 9 to 7, and then the Knicks traded the 9 pick for Jakob Poeltl.
That's it. I also Jamal Murray.
Oh, excuse me, the 9 pick that became Jakob Poeltl, they traded it for Andrea Bargnani.
Yeah, Bargnani. Also, Jamal Murray's not 36 years old. No, Gordon Hayward.
Gordon Hayward was taken with the pick that eventually became Gordon Hayward. The Knicks traded it for Stephon Marbury. The other player, which was taken in the 2004 NBA draft that the Knicks traded, was Kirk Snyder.
Yeah,
I believe he sells insurance now.
God bless him.
Yeah.
And as far as the players who were traded for, I mean, it was an uninspiring list of names. Was there a Dikembe Mutombo in there?
Not this trade. No. We may have that. Who they got for Dikembe Mutombo may come up in a future pick, a future trade, a future conversation podcast that we have. One very notable Knick, I will say.
Oh, Kurt.
No, Charlie Ward.
That's right, Charlie. Wait, but when did Kurt Thomas get traded to Phoenix? Because he got traded to Phoenix also, or maybe he just left for Phoenix.
Kurt Thomas got no. He got traded. So the only player on this list that left the Knicks and wasn't traded was Isaiah Hartenstein, which I think, again, just not to rehab that conversation, adds to his legacy.
Also, I'm an idiot because we literally just talked about how Kurt Thomas was a part of the 2004 playoff series that Stephon Marbury was part of.
He got traded for Quentin Richardson.
Quentin Richardson was not a.
No. The Kurt Thomas got traded.
Oh, Kurt Thomas got traded. We're all over the place.
The notable Knick that
let me get. I got
out was Charlie
Ward.
Yes.
Was Othella Harrington part of this trade?
So I'm just gonna say this: Jamal Crawford is the trade you're thinking of. Jamal Crawford got traded for Dikembe Mutombo, Othella Harrington, Frank Williams, and Cesare Trebansky.
Yeah, that sounds.
Stephon Marbury, along with Penny Hardaway, came to the Knicks for
Shannon Anderson.
No, Howard Heisley. You're close. A former Jazz.
I'm just
Howard
Heisley, out names that
Charlie Ward, Antonio McDyess, Makaj Lampe, and the draft nights to Milos Vujanic.
It's pronounced Maje.
Maje
Lampe. And he was the guy that was going to change our lives when he fell all the way to the second round. I remember when this trade was announced, Lampe was the one name. I was like, man, wish we didn't have to give up Lampe for Marbury, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I'll just note here, I was probably more excited than any Knicks fan alive when they traded for Marbury, because I was still living in '96 when he was part of that draft class, and even to a lesser extent in like the late '90s when him and Garnett made up, the most exciting young duo in the league. Had a couple of tough run-ins with a Spurs team that was just better in the playoffs, but like those teams were fun and young and the whole thing, and then they broke up and Marbury bounced around, and some good stuff happened, and some not good stuff happened. But in any case, in the Knicks annals over the past 25 seasons, Marbury ranks first in total assists, third in total steals, and as I said before, sixth in total win shares, and seventh in total points. And again, this is all since the 2000-2001 season. Last pre-Knick thing before we get into him as a Knick. How much do you think it colors his legacy, as we're looking up here at where everybody had him ranked? Lowest ranking by Benji at 25. Highest ranking by Kev, producer Kev Words, at 11. I had him at 15, so I was definitely
one of the higher ones. Yeah,
on the higher side. How much do you think his legacy is impacted by the fact that he essentially, not directly, but essentially left Phoenix and was replaced by a guy who won 2 MVPs and took the Suns to the brink of multiple finals, or making multiple finals. And then he left New Jersey and was replaced by a guy who finished second in MVP, I think should have won MVP, and took that team to multiple finals.
Well, you're hinting at why talking about Stephon Marbury as a Knick and then talking about Stephon Marbury's career is extremely complicated, because I think from a talent standpoint, he's one of the more talented players that we're going to talk about on this list. Of all 25 that we're going to talk about throughout this list, there are people that are going to get named in the next couple of weeks that aren't as talented as Stephon Marbury, didn't have as much draft hype as Stephon Marbury, weren't as drafted as high as Stephon Marbury. And it's why his career in the States is known as one that you could look at as disappointing. Then you add his legacy in China, and some people say he should make the Hall of Fame based off of that. But like by the time he got to the Knicks, John, Stephon Marbury was like, we were his fourth team. We were the fourth try at being like, no, we're going to get the Stephon Marbury thing right. Like the Timberwolves, he just complained the entire time and eventually forced himself out of Minnesota. You already made the point about New Jersey, how the first 2 years after Stephon Marbury, they were in the NBA Finals. And the first 3 years, 4 or 5 years, I should say, but like the Steve Nash of it all, he replaces via salary. Like they trade Marbury so they have cap space to sign Steve Nash. He wins 2 MVPs and they're a high 50s, low 60 win team for the next several years. And with us, we were like, and this is the other part where it'll inform how I viewed him coming to the Knicks, and is why I was just as excited as you. How naive we were in 2004. Scott Layden was the Knicks president in 2002 to 2004.
Earlier than that, he was there. He was the decision maker, probably starting, I would say, with the like 2001 team.
Was he the one that traded Ewing?
He is the one who gets. Yes, he is the one who traded Ewing.
So Scott Layden, you might see him every now and then. I don't know. I actually don't know where he is now. I know I saw him on NBA TV as an analyst, and I immediately changed the channel a couple years ago. But he was doing a terrible job. The Knicks had fallen into a very mid portion of the NBA. They show up to the 04-05 season, not doing very well. And I'll never
03-04.
Was this the year they finished?
Well, the 03-04 season is when they traded for Marbury, so I'm assuming that's the season.
Yes, you're right. Yes, it was 03 is when this happened. That I'll never forget this. Listening to WFAN as I was as a kid, listening to Mac and Sid in the midday, Sid Rosenberg and Jody Mack. And Mike Francesa calls into their show after the first commercial break, the first 2020 update, and says, I have some breaking news that's going to inform the rest of your show. Scott Layden is out and they're hiring Isaiah Thomas. And that first press conference Isaiah had, I was eating it up. He kept saying the word championships, and we're going to restore the franchise to a standard that existed during the 2000s.
Talked a good game.
And then a couple months later, maybe a couple weeks later,
it was weeks.
He trades for Stephon Marbury, and the kid comes home where he always wanted to be, Mr. New York. What's the Mr. Basketball is what the name, Mr. Basketball for New York State. Coney Island's own gets to play in the Madison Square Garden. Like, he was writing the fairy tale. And then, as we talked about in the Kurt Thomas episode, they make the playoffs months later for the first time since 2001. So we thought we were going to be the team that turned things around with Stephon Marbury. And I'm sure throughout our conversation, we'll talk about why he was not part of any turnaround and might have solidified what his legacy as an NBA player, let alone as a Knick, ended up being.
So a couple things. The thing with Layden, and for any younger fans who may be listening to this, like Scott Layden, I know about all the Isaiah. I know all about the Isaiah Thomas era. I don't really know much about the Scott Layden era. The reason that you don't know about the Scott Layden era is that over that time, it's not just that the Knicks had became bad. They became, I would argue, the most boring franchise in the NBA. They were like how the Bulls are right now. Everybody's like, gunning for the 10th seed, Chicago Bulls. Like the early pre-Isaiah Thomas 2000s Knicks made the current Bulls look like the fucking Steph and Clay Warriors. Like, it was like all those guys I named before who I thought were maybe traded for Marbury, the Othello Harringtons of the world, and the Shannon Andersons and the Howard Isleys, and the Clarence Weatherspoons and the Dikembe Mutombos, who I believe Mutombo was the last addition that Layden made to the team before he was fired. And we love Dikembe Mutombo, but he was like 48 years old or whatever he was. It was just the most uninspiring group of basketball players that you could ever hope to see. And that's why, for me, I struggle with, even now, even 20 years later, reflecting back on my excitement when they traded for Marbury, a level of excitement that caused me some other reasons for this too, but get in my car and drive 7.5 hours to Cleveland to watch Stephon Marbury's debut against the Cavs in person. Yes, I did that, Andrew Claudio. I can't believe you never knew that. I can't tell how much of an idiot I should feel like. And what I mean by that is this. Yes, if you look at the history leading up to that trade, the flameout in Minnesota and New Jersey and Phoenix, it is tempting to suggest that being all in on a trade for Stephon Marbury at that point was no different than being all in on a trade for Zach LaVine today. Imagine being a Kings fan who was like, that's it. We did it when they traded for LaVine. Being like, well, I mean, but that's even probably not the best example because they gave up De'Aaron Fox in that trade.
No. You hit on it. Being a Bulls fan after all these years of relevance. Maybe, yeah. And then you're just mid forever. You're like, oh my gosh, we got Zach LaVine.
So maybe it was when they got LaVine. Instead of when LaVine went to the Kings, it was when the Bulls got LaVine. That would be the comp.
Mm-hmm.
Or was there just enough bloom left on the rose where you could look at it and say, maybe with the right team around him, with the right coach, with the right setup, with the right everything. And the reason why, I don't even all these years later feel like I was being a complete idiot by getting excited about that trade, is because I remember that first season that Marbury had in New York and watching him on some nights and was like, we got one of the 10 best players in the league, and genuinely feeling that way and just kind of like waiting it out to see what else would Isaiah Thomas do, because that was the only really big move he was able to make that season. And then you figured, all right, there's more to come. And then look, the Marbury trade, obviously giving up the Hayward pick and like Marbury's salary and taking on Hardaway's salary, like obviously all that had its repercussions, but it was the stuff that came later, both from a transactional standpoint and from an off-court standpoint, just the level of organizational dysfunction, that I wonder, was that the real culprit? And that's why, for me, that's why I had Marbury 15th on my list, as opposed to a bunch of our faculty members who had him in the 20s. Because I, even now, can't answer that question definitively. Was it Marbury or was it everything else going around Marbury?
Well, to your point about when he first got there, they went 1-3 to start in those first 4 games. And then he was talking about overreacting to short sample sizes, but being starved for sample sizes to just be prosperous. They go 10-4 over the next 14 games. And as we talked about in the Kurt Thomas episode, the 03-04 season had 3 very clear contenders at the top of the conference that were going to be really good. And then a couple teams that might not win 40 games. And that season, multiple teams that finished under 500. One team that finished 10 games under 500 made the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Imagine having a play-in tournament with that year's Eastern Conference, where you have like a couple 50-loss teams as the 9 and 10 seed. But the Knicks going 10-4 put them firmly in the 4-5 race. And it's like our version in 03-04 of the We Here season. And to your point about, like, every year felt like a reset. Like, we'll talk about in a future episode about Jamal Crawford. Like, they trade for Jamal Crawford, and then it's like, all right, well, what's this season going to look like with like fresh start? Stephon Marbury, we got a new coach in here. We got Jamal Crawford. We got Eddie Curry. And then it goes poorly. Larry Brown's here. Let's see if the championship winning head coach can, New York's own, finally coaching the team he wanted to coach.
Steve Francis, pretty soon.
Steve Francis is in here. Zach Randolph is here, and that doesn't go well. Then Isaiah takes over the team, and they're like as coach, yes. And it's like, maybe there can be a frisky 8th seed. And
for one
night,
brief shining moment. They were,
but like, we were starved for a 35-win team that just behaved normally. And this was, every year was a reset. There wasn't a full plan of let's be bad and then slowly get better, or let's go all in for multiple superstars and get better. It's like, let's trade multiple assets for Jamal Crawford. Let's trade multiple assets for, Eddie Curry. And it's like the thing never had that highest ceiling. And it's how much do you put on Stephon Marbury? Look, he ends up being 19 on my list because I couldn't put him any lower behind some of the role players that end up behind him, because I do also wonder what they could have been if a more competent front office with a better plan was making the moves around him. And then we have to talk about it. Like, there are things that happened off the court as well as within the Knicks organization that unfortunately contributed to what this franchise became before, like, Donnie Walsh and D'Antoni, and that mini turnaround for a couple of years eventually happened. But as far as Steph is concerned, every year, because of how talented he was, you thought, okay, this is going to be the year that they're at least a 7 seed with how bad the Eastern Conference is. And I'll take it. With where we've been for most of this decade, I'll take it. And it just never reached that ceiling again.
I'm going to throw out a name. We'll move on to the categories. It's not a perfect comp by any means for a variety of reasons. I'm going to throw out a name. Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson had a long NBA career, played until he was 35 years old, played for a bunch of teams. Most famous moment probably came with the We Believe Warriors. But early on in his career, and it wasn't the team he was drafted by. He actually didn't get there until several years after he was drafted. But early on in his career, he played with the Spurs. And I remember when Steven Jackson was a member of the Spurs, and he was only there for 2 years. But during those 2 years, he was a pretty important cog on a team that won a title. And then he went on his merry way, and like he had the career that he had. And like Stephon Marbury was way more talented than Steven Jackson. Like they're not even in the same conversation. But it's like, I remember what I thought of Steven Jackson when he was with the Spurs. And then I remember what I thought of Steven Jackson over the rest of his career. And I'm like, well, would I have thought differently of Steven Jackson if he spent his entire career in San Antonio? But then again, maybe Steven Jackson wasn't the sort of guy who was going to likely spend his entire career in a place like San Antonio with what they're all about. And maybe that's the other side of the coin with Marbury. Maybe there were just things about him that did not lend themselves to sustained winning basketball. But the last thing I will say is this. I can't obviously justify this, but I think he came here with the best of intentions. And I think he really tried to back up those intentions on the court by trying to play the best basketball, the most winning basketball of his career. I don't think he got here, and from the moment he got here, it's like, fuck it, I'm in New York now. I got here. Let's have some fun. No, I think he really made an effort to try to turn this organization around. And I've said this before, like, I don't think there were 3 guys in the league who could have turned that franchise around at that time. And he wasn't one of them.
It's why Steven Jackson's not the name I went. John Wall's the name I went to think about Stephon Marbury. Like another very high draft pick on a franchise that just didn't have a lot going on at the time. I know
he could carry the load of a successful playoff team
that made the second round once. Like
it's more than Marbury. I mean,
so we're talking about one extra round because Marbury made multiple playoff berths with multiple teams. Like yes, he did
with some significant talent with Stat and with KG around him.
And John Wall had so to your point, he wasn't the guy. Like he wasn't what John Wall was next to Bradley Beal and Gortat and all that. Marbury made the playoffs 4 times in his career outside of the Boston run where he was a backup point guard, right?
Yeah.
And in those 4 times, he lost in the first round each time, twice getting swept, once with the Knicks, one with the Minnesota Timberwolves. But like in that similar vein of probably in the top 7 or 8 for point guards during his tenure, but outside of that, like difference-making point guard, like we have with Jalen. However, how much do you blame John Wall for only making the second round once in Washington? Is it more about what got put around him? How much got around him was not all that competent or fit what was best for him? And it's why, like, had Marbury gotten traded from a third team, like if he had gotten traded from Phoenix to a more competent organization, does his 26 through 30, which is known as an NBA player's prime, go differently?
That's exactly my question.
That's where I'm looking at this as more with you as a what if that, and this is more to the younger Knicks fan. We're saying like we were hoping Marbury could come here and make us a 7 seed. That's how low things had gotten as Knicks fans in the 2000s. And like Steve Francis didn't make our list, but if we're just talking about moments, his buzzer beater, like with Marbury yelling at him on the scorer's table in excitement in Orlando. And we're like, yeah, we're the 8th seed, guys. We got this. And to compare it to where we are now, where if the Knicks finished with the 8th seed this year, Knicks Film School probably goes bankrupt because we all have quit on everything good and holy in this world. Like that's where things were. And it's why I have a hard time fully blaming him for his prime potentially being wasted, while recognizing he does share some of the blame.
I think we could split the baby by saying this. He's not Steve Nash.
No.
He's not Jason Kidd. He's not Kobe or Ray Allen or Allen Iverson or the other guys in that draft class. He's not any of those guys. But he was a multi-time All-Star. And I think, to your point, if he had been traded somewhere where he didn't have to be the guy and could play alongside an MVP, except now have the humility that he did not enter the league with when he butted heads with KG, as opposed to seeing KG as a guy who, like, wow, I can win a championship with this guy. What might have been, I don't know. I don't know who that player would have been. I don't know what that circumstance would have been. And what?
Well, I know we're running long. It's not that I disagree. It's that we're not his biggest what if. Minnesota is his biggest what if. Like, had they been able to build around KG and Stephon Marbury for a decade and put role players around those two, you would have been able to win a lot of games in the late 90s and early 2000s, as weak as the NBA was at the time. Like, they would have been able to build something. And like, to the point, like, Phoenix was starting to build something. I know it was D'Antoni, so D'Antoni and Marbury. You made this point a couple weeks ago. Marbury played for D'Antoni for a little bit that first season, and then he quickly was like, I would like to trade Stephon Marbury so that way we can get Steve Nash in the offseason. That could have been like, if he had stayed in Phoenix, maybe he has a better path to more success and more playoff success with Amari. We're not as big as what if, like Minnesota is, but it's a shame that a fourth team took a chance on him and just wasn't, it didn't have all their ducks in a row to potentially make his prime, a turnaround.
They were, again, to go back to Analogyville, it's not that they didn't have their ducks in a row. They were drowning their own ducks. Yeah. And again, Marbury, did he always help his case, or did he always help the case of the team? He did not. And I don't want to make any bones about that. But my God, there was a lot going on here. Quick break to tell you about America's first ever USDA organic THC gummy. You know the words. Shout out to Cornbread. Yes, Cornbread, the source of your healthy happy hour. It's a natural and healthier way to experience a carefree moment. Cornbread's THC gummies offer a balanced sense of happiness and relaxation. Well, how do they achieve that balance? My favorite thing about Cornbread is it's just the right amount for me, as someone who is not a regular user of these sorts of products, but still wants to get that relaxation without feeling anxious or paranoid like some other cannabis edibles, which is why Cornbread's 1-to-1 THC to CBD ratio is perfect for me. They have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, which is just the right dose, and it gives me everything I need without any of the stuff that I don't want. If you are looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They have created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that is 100% legal. As a special offer to Knicks Film School listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/KFS and use promo code KFS at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/KFS and use code KFS for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. I think this episode, I know we took a ton of time to get to the categories, but I think this is the only way to have a Stephon Marbury discussion, because you can't.
It's complicated. Yeah.
He's arguably the most complicated player on the list because of the very strong feelings that everybody who watched him had associated with him at the time. On that note, lasting image or best memory / lasting image of him as a Knick. If I'm being honest with this one, my lasting image of Stephon Marbury as a Knick is my final image of Stephon Marbury as a Knick. Among the things I will never forget from those years is the first game of the Mike D'Antoni era. And I went into that night feeling, despite how glowingly I am talking about Marbury tonight, I was done with the Stephon Marbury experience. And I was like, for this franchise to move forward, I don't know what forward's going to look like, but I know Stephon Marbury isn't going to be a part of it. And I was like, man, I just wish D'Antoni would just sit him on the bench and not play him. And it was one of those moments where, as a fan, I sat there and I was watching the game and I was like, holy shit, he's not starting. He's not getting off the bench. He didn't play in the whole first half. And he didn't play in the entire game. And like, as that game went on and like he sat there with the towel on his head, I remember this very strange dichotomy of like, I got exactly what I wanted and I felt awful about it.
Yeah.
Because you're watching this car crash happen in real time and you just like, if you're a human being, you felt awful for the guy. And that was, I'm pretty sure that was the last time he was ever on the bench. And then eventually he got traded to Boston.
Well, so he became inactive after that. I don't remember much after that night, but the reason I remember that night so vividly, John, is I was in the building for the Knicks 120 to 115 victory, and the murmurs that started to get around the building that, like, you're right, Marbury didn't start. Marbury's not playing, hasn't checked into the game yet. There never became a chance to chant like "We want Steph," but I do remember at points that season, "We want Steph" chants existed, if I'm not mistaken. But it was unheard of. It was very clear that was the move to make, and to your point, that probably was a move that a lot of Knicks fans at that point wanted the team to make. It just wasn't done in the most competent or functional ways. Like it wasn't done in a way that, like, you probably should have just traded him before the season or bought him out before the season to not create this type of distraction. And what it became was a distraction, especially with what happened to the Knicks like weeks later with the rest of the guys that I got to watch on that opening night getting shipped out. That night. That night was very complicated for me because while it was a night to watch the Knicks home opener, it was also the night the Phillies won the World Series, and I hated everything about baseball. And those feelings may return this October. I still was able to appreciate from a negative standpoint, like even this reset with D'Antoni doesn't seem, the Knicks are winning and it doesn't seem to be going the way it should go. Because nobody really cared about the result of the game. It was like this very clear distraction was going on the bench.
What's your lasting image or memory?
So I tried to be positive, and it's the buzzer beater against the Jazz. Darren Williams hits the shot. I think one of his first games, he had a heater against the team where he had a bunch of points in the first half, and the Knicks ended up winning by a bunch. That 10-4 stretch, I think they beat the Pacers at one point during that stretch, or the Pistons during that stretch, and it put them like, the Knicks are in it. And like, he had beautiful chemistry with Keith Van Horn on the floor, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never knew how much I would love Keith Van Horn and Stephon Marbury on the Knicks.
Keith was on that? Was with him on that team?
So Keith was on that team, and then Isaiah. At the time, I thought the Knicks made one move too many. The Knicks traded Keith Van Horn for Tim Thomas.
But Marbury, season. I remember the Van Horn for Tim Thomas trade. I frankly had forgotten that there was a little bit of overlap between Van Horn and Marbury, but I'm looking at it right now. There was.
I'm telling you, go look at the game logs from.
I'm looking at it right now.
I'm saying to Knicks fans, there's this 10-4 stretch in like January or February, right before the trade deadline, where you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, this is a thing. Like the Knicks might actually have started to turn things around. And look, I'll throw little brother a bone here. They went across the Hudson to New Jersey to get two players from a team that had gotten far in the playoffs recently, had multiple playoff runs. Now, Steph wasn't part of any of the New Jersey deep playoff runs for sure. He made the first round once and then lost. That's right. He never made it with New Jersey because they traded Sam Cassell to get him. Look, at the end of the day, my lasting image of Stephon Marbury might be him becoming a cheerleader of the current Knicks alumni. But as far as a positive memory, that's his lasting legacy, I think, or we'll talk about it when he gets to that part of the categories. Is I think his lasting legacy, he's still building it with Knicks fans.
Van Horn, during that stretch of 15 games he played that you're talking about, where the Knicks were really good, 16-7 on some efficient shooting, shot 48% from three, albeit on just under 4 attempts per game. Yep. Yeah, pretty solid. Jesus, biggest regret or something we wish would have gone differently. I mean,
this is a one-word answer for me. Everything.
So this is complicated because when I wrote about Marbury and I can't spoil it. I wrote about Marbury and someone else who was on a team with Marbury last week. And the notion that you talk about one trade too many, that maybe that was the trade that was one too many. And yet, I mean, I'm kind of giving it away. The player I'm talking about has yet to appear on this list. And he's going to appear higher than Stephon Marbury in this list. And I noticed after I wrote that, every single faculty member had the player I'm talking about. It's Jamal Crawford. I'm just going to say it. Higher than Stephon Marbury, except for me. And I had him one spot lower. I'm the only one. And it's not, they were two guards who were combo guards, operated the best with the ball in their hands. Not the best defensively. I understood the vision. I also understand what they got Jamal Crawford for, which was a bag of nothing. Even they did have to pay him a new contract. And yet, like that partnership for as much as Jamal Crawford is like, for as much as we're talking about all these complicated feelings with Marbury, oddly enough, I don't know that it's going to be that complicated when we talk about Crawford because people love Jamal Crawford.
I come at this, and this is my version of Mensa ranking Nate Robinson in the top 10. Like Jamal Crawford, when I was first able to drive and had disposable income to go to sporting events, like I would go to Madison Square Garden, I'd go to Knicks games. Sometimes I wouldn't even go to the games. I just knew you could wait outside for autographs. I have in my parents' house on Long Island, like a shoebox of ticket stubs autographed by Jamal Crawford because he was a fan favorite.
He did it for you.
This is bad, but he's fun. Like it's very much of a young Knicks fan trying to find something fun, and he was one of them. And there wasn't any complicated feelings like there were with Marbury.
It's totally respectable, and yet I wonder if that trade was the best trade for the team, given that Stephon Marbury was already on the team.
Well, so if you wanted to go a step further and talk about go deeper than just everything, John, do you know how many head coaches Stephon Marbury, when he was a Knick, let's include D'Antoni as one of them. How many coaches did the Knicks have during those 4 or 5 years?
Well, if you count Herb Williams, who was there on an interim basis, it was
in 2 different stints. Yeah, he was 1-0 for one, and then another.
Not as good as the other one. So it was Larry Brown, Lenny Wilkins, Herb Williams, Mike D'Antoni, and Isaiah Thomas. I think I got everybody right.
Don Chaney.
Oh, that's right. Don Chaney was there when he first got there, and then Isaiah Thomas fired Don Chaney and hired Lenny Wilkins. Yeah.
To speak to the instability for the young Knick fan that needs it to be crystallized. Marbury gets there. Don Chaney's the head coach. They win for a little bit, then they lose for a little bit. Isaiah makes his first coaching fire. Herb Williams coaches 1 game. They hire Lenny Wilkins, who at the time had the most wins of any head coach in NBA history.
Yep.
They go 23-19 over the rest of the season.
Yep. And
then they get off to a tough start the following season, which was 17-22. Not like this wasn't David Fizdale 4-18. They were 5 games under 500, and they hire in an interim basis Herb Williams. They go 16-27 the rest of the year. And it's like, are they going to be a young team? A little frisky, maybe? No, they don't take the interim label off. They hire Larry Brown to be the head coach of the Knicks and give him. Do you know how much money? I don't know the number. I just know they gave him like the most money a head coach had ever been given.
I might be mixing it up with the Phil Jackson. It's like 5 years, $30 million.
Yeah, which back then was unheard of to be.
It was the most money that I think it was the most money that had ever been given to a head coach, and he lasted a year.
One season. They hire Isaiah Thomas because they went 23-59.
Just to be very clear about the Larry Brown, like remember the Monty Williams thing in Detroit a couple years. I'm not saying to you. I'm saying to like younger listeners. Like Monty Williams, with the owner had to like up his own offer to like Monty Williams, like, I don't really want to coach right now. And the owner was like, please take more money to come and do this job, which is a hard job that you don't want to do. And then it was and we got Killian Hayes over, Jaden Ivey. Larry Brown in that year was Monty Williams times 1,000.
Yeah.
But it was from day one. From day one. He hated the players on his own team.
He had like 60 different starting fives. Channing Frye, when he was on with us, talked about how just dysfunctional it seemed from day one. Didn't know if he's going to be starting in the rotation, what position he was going to play. There was never any development path given. And look, the only difference because the years went about the same, like the Pistons year and the Knicks year we're talking about, the results may end up being the same. The only thing that's different is when Monty Williams got hired as Pistons head coach, it was like very clear. Oh, they just wanted to get someone like this is a money grab. Like he's only taking this job for money. There was a lot of romance and a fairy tale around Larry Brown, New York's own, finally coaching New York's team. So I look at that season, at the Larry Brown season, and I look at it as a like they may have ended looking like Monty Williams. That was looked at as, oh, they've turned the franchise around. They got a head coach in here. And then when that didn't work out, Isaiah had to take over. And then there was one successful year of 33 wins, and then they missed the playoffs. And then the following year, everybody gets fired, and lawsuits happen.
It was insane. And before I got roasted, yes, I understand the Eddie Curry trade was made, and that trade was an utter disaster. But like, at least that one, if you squinted, you saw the logic. Pair like an elite guard, or in this case guards, because Crawford and Marbury are both here, with like the elite big man. He just never turned into an elite bigger man. Okay, let's finish up. What role would Stephon Marbury have on the current team? I mean, it seems like we're struggling with this question more and more with each passing episode. I'm going to give the same answer that I've given for like half of these episodes, which is that he takes the Jordan Clarkson role, and that's it.
So prime Marbury is too good for the Jordan Clarkson role.
So he sits on the bench like D'Antoni had him on opening night?
I hate to say it, like he's an overqualified player for this current Knicks team. It's similar to like prime Kurt Thomas is too good to be a third center on the Knicks. Prime Marbury is too good to be a backup point guard to Stephon. Now, look, would he have thrived in the Jordan Clarkson role? Sure. But like we're talking at 26 years old, if the Knicks had Stephon Marbury right now, like he'd be on all the talk shows being like, I should probably be getting the ball more,
Like, I'm trying to think of the comp. There isn't a perfect comp. There really isn't a perfect comp. Like I was going to be like, imagine the Knicks got like a slightly worse version of De'Aaron Fox, and then you're going to be like, well, De'Aaron Fox is a lot better than Stephon Marbury. Again, Stephon Marbury made 2 All-Star teams. De'Aaron Fox, last I checked, has made 1. I understand Fox just get paid $1 bajillion by the Spurs, and he's still viewed as a potentially winning player. And Marbury, by the same age, was largely not, some delusional Knicks fans notwithstanding. I just think it would be It would be an interesting conversation because of where the Knicks are at. It's like, I don't think any sane person would be like, Marbury should start alongside Jalen Brunson. But I think there would be a lot of talk about like, how many minutes a game should these guys be playing together? I really do.
Can I ask a different question? That's a version of this. Like, we talked about how getting Marbury in his prime at 26, but the foundation wasn't there to build around a small guard like that is heavy offense. What if the Knicks get... how much worse would they be? Because I don't think, obviously, Jalen Brunson's an MVP candidate, so that's different. But like, how much worse would the Knicks be now if at 26, with everything that was in place when the Knicks got Brunson, they get Stephon Marbury instead? With Tibbs in place, with Randall coming off of a weird season, but now we're adding an all-star point guard. He comes in free agency rather than giving up assets, so it's the exact same thing. If you just take what Jalen Brunson was when he came here in 2022. This is oh my God, I'm having my a few good men. I strenuously object, and then he says it makes all the cross looks like a bunch of fancy lawyer talk. The answer I'm about to give makes everything I said earlier in the episode look like a bunch of fancy podcaster talk, because my answer is everybody gets fired before the end of the season. Oh, you think that it crashes and burns?
I think it crashes and burns spectacularly.
I'm going to put a little more faith in how good I thought Steph was at 26 years old, and how what the tough part is, like the Evan Fournier next to him, like he would eventually have to not be playing next to Stephon Marbury.
There was a lot of things, but like, again, after Brunson came, that team started 10-13.
Right.
And they were this close to being ripped apart at the seams. And I think it was the stability of the Brunson Tibbs infrastructure that those two, they had those two guys that never gave up on each other and everybody else around them. And they somehow survived it. And I just don't think they would have with Marbury. Okay.
I think that I know we have to run, but give me a second. I want to say, like, I do think they would have become a playoff team. They would be between Randall and what I thought Marbury was, how good I think Tibbs is as a coach, how good I think the front office is at putting the correct pieces around there. They still would have had multiple pivots of taking Rose out of the rotation, taking Fournier out of the rotation, and putting like younger players more quickly, more defense oriented players, Quentin Grimes into the starting five. The caveat being, I don't think they ever ascended this where they are as championship contenders with Marbury as the point guard. So they're in that next tier of like the 6th seed is a ceiling. So what we honestly hoped they'd be with Marbury, which I think is the way to answer this question. He would be the Jalen Brunson on today's team, and I don't think they'd be that good. And I think
I think we're just talking about we have best case scenario. Okay. Lasting legacy as amongst Knicks Nation with Knicks fans. You had a 1-word answer before. I'm gonna have a 2-word answer here. It's complicated. That's it.
It is. And we've really only alluded to a lawsuit that you should all go do your homework on when you go through Stephon Marbury's Wikipedia page.
And I'm not even talking about that when I say it's complicated.
Like, there's a basketball complication too. And it's why I think my answer to this is he's still building it, his lasting legacy with Knicks fans. And when a younger Knicks fan sees him in Celebrity Row with the Knicks alumni cheering on this team that doesn't really win anything, cheering on this team that wins something, but that he being someone that didn't really win anything, I should say. And they ask, well, so wait, who's Stephon Marbury? What did he do? It's complicated, to your point. Like, he didn't really win much and came here during a time when the Knicks were not really that functional an organization like they are today. I would just say in closing, for me, balling on a budget in my late teens, early 20s, and he I couldn't afford Jordans or even Nikes to that point, and I worked at a sporting goods store that sold them, right? And while you're out there hustling, trying to still, keep up with the Joneses a bit, there was this store, Stephen Barry's, that then sold Stephon Marbury sneakers, and he wanted to make affordable basketball sneakers for people that couldn't afford Nikes, couldn't afford Jordans. And I owned every pair of Starburys that came out of there, the all black, the orange and blue, the all white with the little orange and blue, the all blue with a little orange and blue. And I wore those things to work, even though we didn't sell them at the sporting goods store that I worked at. And yeah, that's probably my lasting legacy. When I talk to my buddies about Marbury, it's like, man, we owned every pair of Starburys, and had all the merch and everything. So, thank you for that, Steph. And who knows where his legacy with Knicks fans eventually lands? Because I still think it's being written, honestly.
I was about to say that it is still being written. I hope he continues going to games and rooting for the team. I think it's really cool that he's out there on social media, really pushing that. And let's hope they keep doing some winning so he has something to continue rooting for. This was great. I think we did this one justice, and I wasn't sure we were going to be able to, but I think we did. Andrew Claudio, thank you very much. You're the man. Everybody out there, thank you for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Stay tuned on Monday when another episode of 25 for 25 will be dropping. Until then, everybody have a great weekend and talk to you soon. Peace out.